The Audi RS3 was so good that I honestly didn't think they could make it any better. But yet for 2025, Audi has done exactly that, and they made this thing even more fun, even more exciting, and really gave it some great improvements. And in this video, I'll cover the exterior changes, the interior changes, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road now, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as the styling changes for 2025, well, we get some new headlights there, which still have the adjustable LED matrix pattern you can customize to whatever you like there. But the main change is that front bumper that's new. So you can see you have that big black painted portion there. That comes on all of them. Now this one also does have the carbon pack, which also will give you those little carbon fiber inserts in the air inlets, which are also wider and larger than before for better cooling, which is great, and a really fun new bumper. Also, there's some new colors, including this Ascari blue, which looks really great, especially here in the sun with a metallic flake. It's so good. We also have the more prominent Audi badge there that pokes out of the front of the grille there. And then coming down to the sides, we also have some new wheel designs here, which look great. And I also love these flared fenders. We had these on the pre-refresh, but they're actually functional and are just a really nice visual enhancer, in my opinion. That carbon pack also gives you the carbon fiber side sills and also these carbon fiber mirror caps. And then going out to the back there, you see that you have a new rear bumper now, which has the extra carbon fiber once again, but just a more aggressive rear diffuser. You have the little vertical brake light there, and also some new taillight graphics inside of them that are just slightly tweaked, same shape as before, but still look great. And you also have that carbon fiber rear lip spoiler there as well. So yeah, overall, just nice little tweaks to freshen it up a little bit. The interior of the Audi RS3 gets some really cool tweaks here for 2025, in my opinion. And there's a bunch of stuff here, some that's RS specific, other stuff that's just here for all A3 and S3s as well. But first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have the same seats as before. Now in Europe, you will get a sportier seat that's available, but we don't have that available here in the States, unfortunately. And these seats are still really nice. I like the quilting on them. I like that you have an adjustable thigh support and all the other usual adjustments here. And they are very supportive still, so I have no complaints with them in that regard. The only thing I can say is that for some reason Audi doesn't like perforating the seats in their lower vehicles, and so as a result we have no ventilation in these seats. That's something that even the Golf R gives you ventilated seats. This would have been the prime opportunity in 2025 to add that, and for some reason they didn't want to. So it is what it is, but that's the only downfall in my opinion, but otherwise great seats. The steering wheel though, again, all new here, and it's a really cool wheel. It has the flat top and the flat bottom, and this is the new wheel we're seeing in other Audis as well that's been rolling out. Has a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches. You get some red buttons here. One is a shortcut to the RS individual mode, the other one is a shortcut to the RS performance mode, and you also have great paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel that are metal and feel great. But you also have this touch sensitive area, and this was swapped in to replace what you had before 2025, which were real buttons and nice feeling scrollers. And especially with the lessons that Volkswagen has learned with putting buttons back in, I mean, I know they wanted to include this new wheel, and that demanded the touch sensitive parts, because all these new Audi wheels have those touch sensitive parts. But I think that might be a little controversial. I think they're okay. I certainly prefer the regular buttons, because especially depending on how big your thumb muscles are, you may bump into these corner buttons here for the phone and for changing the little menu icon there. And also the touch sensitivity is really sensitive, so scrolling through those things on the left now takes a little bit more focus to make sure you don't scroll too far. It's a minor nitpick. It's certainly not a deal breaker or anything in this car. It's awesome enough to easily overlook that, but just not a great change as far as that specific little part, in my opinion. My one big complaint with this wheel though is that it is not a heated steering wheel, even though this wheel is actually the same wheel that we get in the S models, I believe, because you can see there's still a button here for the heated steering wheel. It's just not illuminated on this one in particular. And so I almost wonder if this wheel actually is heated, but they just disabled it for some reason. But clearly this wheel has the capability to be heated. This is an all-wheel drive Audi that a lot of people buy for its wintertime capability, and this car is $77,000 as tested. We should have a heated steering steering wheel. I don't see any technical reason why they can't do it, and that's just a real head scratcher, but it is what it is. Moving on to the gauge cluster here, we have the same Audi virtual cockpit we've had for many years now, but for 2025, we do get a new tack look here. So it used to be like the bar, angled bar kind of thing you had. Now we have the return of a normal round tack here. And otherwise, you know, all the same great displays for, you know, this performance modes and all those different things. And, you know, really nice gauges. You also have a head-up display here, which is nice. The interesting thing is whenever you're in the RS modes, you'll have the temperature readout there, which is a nice inclusion, but the head-up display only comes on the technology package though. So if you don't want it or don't care about it, that combines with navigation for $2,000. I'd personally drop that option, but you know, nice to have if you want it. Now coming over to the middle here, we have the same 10.1 inch touchscreen as we've had for many years now. And it has wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, and unfortunately, and I don't know if it's just iOS 26 with my iPhone or if it's an actual Audi thing, but it did disconnect a few times this week. These systems have been pretty reliable in other Audis in the past, so I'm inclined to think this is something on my phone's end and not with Audi's system, but I did just have a few disconnects this week, you know, just for anyone who's curious. But otherwise, it still has all the other same great menus, and some of the Audi stuff is a little slow still, like any of the internet-based stuff, like pulling up the themes, which you can have, which is a fun thing, but I mean, that takes a while to load, that kind of stuff, so I could, you know, use a little bit of a speed boost as far as that goes, but everything else is the same Audi menus you've seen for many years now, and that means, you know, radio stations are nice and easy to navigate. You have the beautiful map view of, you know, satellite map view for Google Maps there in the navigation, and it is a connected navigation here, again, with that technology package, and, you know, all works really well. It's also now hooked up to the Sonos stereo, so that's a change from the Bang & Olufsen that we had previously. It's still a 3D stereo, and to my ears, it sounds pretty equivalent. I'd have to listen to them back to back in the same song to really try and nitpick, but it should be a very good sounding stereo still. And honestly, especially the RS3, the stereo is a little less important in my opinion because you're buying this car for the 5-cylinder sounds. I very rarely use the stereo this week, even though it's a very good stereo. It just, to me, I'd rather listen to this engine because how much longer are we going to be able to hear a 5-cylinder? So anyway, but moving on here to the climate controls, you know, you still have, thankfully, physical switches here and a nice little separate display for that. You also have a nice row of additional switches beneath that for your drive mode selector and your parking cameras and all of that. Another nice thing here for 2025 is that they did open up this center bin here. So you have this deeper area, which has a Qi wireless charging pad as standard in the RS3s and 2 USB-C jacks now. You also have this new shifter design that Audi's been putting in everything in the past few years here, and that replaces the little notch that you had before. You still have this volume and skip track combo little scroller there, which isn't the best, but you know, it's totally fine. Again, not something to sweat considering how awesome this car is. And then moving back, you have your 2 cup holders, a little power outlet, and another little spot for the key. You have the center armrest, which is nice and softly padded actually, and you open that up and you'll see a very small area. It actually doesn't even fit my sunglasses case, so I have to put my sunglasses case over in the door here in the bottle holder. So, you know, I mean, I guess you could put it also in the wireless charging area if you want, but you know, just, I guess they improved it a little bit with that wireless charging bin being bigger, but, you know, still just not a lot of storage space here in this vehicle. But again, another sacrifice. This is going to be a theme that I'm willing to make here for the awesomeness of this car. We also do have in this door area some new perforations on the door card, which is cool too. Moving on to the back seat here in the RS3. You know, that hasn't changed at all. And so if you're familiar with any of these Audis from the past 10 years, you know, it's going to be pretty much the same story. But I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I do have, I'd say, over an inch of legroom to spare. I do have some headroom as well, so I actually fit completely comfortably, and I have no complaints. Now, would I want to do a road trip back there? No, but, you know, for most use cases for this vehicle, especially if you just have kids you're putting back there on a regular basis, but even, you know, adults that are under 6 feet tall, I'd say, you know, are going to be totally fine, assuming the people up front aren't too tall. And you also see a fold-down center armrest there, pockets in those doors, and they also do have, technically they call it tri-zone climate, You'll see air vents and USB-C jacks, and then a little rudimentary scroller there that just goes from hot to cold. Then moving on to the trunk space here in the RS3. Again, that's all the same, but it does now have a kick to open feature, which hilariously loves to open up at car washes whenever I'm at a spray it yourself car wash with the key in my pocket. Don't do that. It popped on me twice and you have to immediately stop spraying so you don't hose down the interior of your trunk. But, you know, aside from that one little funny quirk, you know, it's a pretty good amount of space for a vehicle of this segment. I still desperately wish we'd get the hatchback version that they get in Europe, but, you know, having any of these is just a gift in my opinion. So I'm, you know, happy to take what I can get here. But you don't have any kind of spare tire under the floor or anything. But, you know, still should be usable again in limited instances. And you do also have the seats that fold flat, so you can get some extra space there. But let's start up and go for a drive. The RS3 does have a unique key. So on the front here, it looks like a regular Audi key. But on the back, you'll see there's the RS logo. I mean, not a huge change, but a nice, you know, differentiator. And I appreciate that they went to the trouble to do that. And it's a nice small key. I still love these new Audi keys. Nice and small, but still has the nice metal feeling for the buttons and stuff. So it's, you know, pretty high quality. And yeah, of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and this mighty 5-cylinder roars to life. All right, so setting off here in the 2025 RS3. So the first thing you notice about this vehicle, I think the first thing that I notice here is probably the dual clutch. It does make its presence known every once in a while. You still can hear a clunk or feel a slight roughness every once in a while, but most of the time it's very smooth, very well behaved. There were just one time, I think, one or two times where I was waiting for a downshift from the transmission, but I will say overall, I don't know if it's the extra power of this engine or the unique tuning here for the RS over stuff like the Golf R, where I often complain about the dual clutches and those. This is very well done. It's a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, and just it all works very, very well. We'll demonstrate that out on a back road here in a minute. Other things though, you have nice and responsive brakes. This one has the carbon ceramic brakes, which are part of a Dynamic Plus package that you have here for I think about $5,600, but they feel very normal, thankfully, and bite right towards the top of the pedal, but not so aggressively that it's hard to be smooth with or anything. Throttle response is also really nicely dialed in, where, you know, you just lean into the gas, just a little bit of pressure, and it starts to give you some nice response out of it. And yeah, I think, you know, just the extra power, you can really lean on the torque a little more in this, and so it just feels a little less slow at the lower RPMs, even if you are kind of not immediately getting a downshift. Other things here, visibility is actually really good here in these, you know, this generation of the A3. You have a nice thin A-pillar, good view out of the sides, good view out of the back, and no complaints there. And it's also, you know, pretty quiet in here, you know, especially when the roads are nice, and pretty smooth too. We do have the sport suspension, which does lower this 10 millimeters over a regular S3. And we also have the adaptive dampers go along with it. And in the comfort mode that it's been in, and see, it's giving me some nice downshifts here, but in the comfort mode, it's been fine. You know, it's a performance car, but I'd say this is smoother than like a Mercedes, even a regular CLA 35, not to mention the 45, but it's smoother than the Mercedes, and I've had no complaints with the ride quality here this week. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it up into the RS performance mode, actually, which gives it all the sportiest settings, transmissions in its S mode, and it does turn stability control into its sports setting. And let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it accelerates. And here we go. Oh man, this thing. Oh, it sounds so good, and it goes really well too. I will do a launch control in a few minutes here, but just and I love the nose lifts up, and it just feels so alive and so furious. Oh, I love this thing. I've always loved it, and it gets even better for 2025. You'll see what I mean when we go around some corners. But as far as the acceleration, we have the 2.5-liter inline 5-cylinder turbocharged engine. It does 394 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is claimed by Audi at 3.6 seconds for 2025. but I believe Car and Driver actually got 3.2 seconds out of this thing. And so, I mean, not only does it sound like a Lamborghini, but it actually is as fast as a Lamborghini at this point as well. I mean, just so impressive. We'll go ahead and play with the paddles here. Downshift is immediate. Upshift, it kind of made me wait for a second there. I think it just assumed I wanted to go to redline, but I wanted a short shift. I know oftentimes these transmissions are just designed to try and predict what you want to do. It's sometimes, you know, it can be caught off guard, but overall, you know, pretty good, I'd say, as far as all that goes. Yeah, we'll do some more manual shifts here in a second and play with that a little bit more. But yeah, very well behaved, you know, whenever you are starting off from a stop, though, and inching up in traffic, all those kinds of things, it does feel very good. But let's try some more manual shifts here. Okay. Those short shifts it was very good with, because there are some times, maybe I'm crazy, but there's times where I do want to just, you know, have some of the fun, and I want to put my foot to the floor, but I don't need to go all the way to redline and go that fast. But I'm happy it is. I'd say this is definitely my favorite as far as all the Volkswagen Group, at least non-Porsche or Lamborghini stuff, where it's really well done. Yeah, really, just, it's so good. And I've actually been paddle shifting quite a bit this week just because it's fun and I want to be that involved in the driving experience. And also this road that I'm on usually does generate some road noise, and you hear a little bit of it here, but it's not too bad. But yeah, so I'm in this RS performance mode, which does optimize things for better turn-in, and we have a bunch of enhancements. So we're on this back road here. Let's see how the RS3 handles. It handles phenomenally well. And the real secret sauce for 2025 that to me is a must-have is the fact that this thing oversteers more. And that's thanks to this torque vectoring, torque splitter rear diff that we have here in this, which has been optimized now for more oversteer. And it moves around so much, and I absolutely adore how much this thing moves around. It is hilarious. So, you know, again, adaptive dampers keep things nice and flat. We also do have the Bridgestone Potenza sport tires here. Although this one being the dynamic package, it's supposed to have Pirelli R tires on it, and doesn't have those. So I'm guessing it's just for this press vehicle the way they wanted to set it up. But this torque vectoring rear diff has now been set up so that it not only does it provoke more oversteer, but it also gives you better corner entry setup and also better corner exit setup. And so it just basically just makes everything that much better, especially here in this RS performance mode, where it just feels, I mean, it feels better than neutral. You know, Audi's often been, you know, dragged for being, you know, understeery or whatever. I've always thought that especially the S and RS models, they did a really good job, but now this thing is amazing. There's also this new torque rear mode where it'll actually put 100% of the available torque to the outside rear wheel there to try and oversteer this vehicle, and it still is a 50-50 split for the power, so it's not going to be full rear wheel drive or anything like that, but it does give you the ability to do some actual drifts in this thing. And even when you're not in that mode, I'm not going to put that mode on because it's really not for street use and we are on public roads here, but even when you're just in the other modes, it's very oversteery. And they also say that the dynamic mode actually is set up for even more oversteer, and that's more of the fun mode that prioritizes corner entry and exit a little less. So this RS performance mode is really more about like track driving and all that. And you also have some really impressive brakes here. So for this Dynamics package, you get 15-inch carbon ceramic brakes up front. The rear brakes are still going to be the same, and you can still, again, just get regular steel brakes if you don't want the ceramics. Ceramics are certainly nice to have, especially when you're dealing with something that is, you know, supercar levels of speed here. But you know, I don't believe the prior pre-refresh one that I had those, but yeah, I'm sure, again, for street use especially, you're still going to have RS brakes on the regular, you know, non-dynamic pack. That dynamic package also will raise the top speed to 180 miles per hour. I believe it might be limited to 155 if you don't go for that package, but you know, do you need all that stuff? Again, it's an expensive package. Personally, it's fun to have, and if you're going to do some track driving, I can see it, you know, making some sense. And this thing really wants to stay at high RPMs and not give up, even though I'm stuck behind an 18-wheeler here. It's like, no, please, let's keep having fun. I can always just pull the paddle and calm it down myself here. Yeah, you know, so It is. It's so funny though, it'll immediately go back and give me a downshift whenever I put it back in the automatic mode. But anyway, you know, I think personally I'd save the $5,600 if you don't want one of these to get into the 70s. You know, you can keep these under 70 grand if you're, you know, sparing with your options there. This one also, by the way, speaking of options, does have this sport exhaust for $1,000 extra. But even if you don't get the sport exhaust, they did modify the exhaust so it has a little bit of a different logic for the variable flaps. So I believe it's supposed to be even throater even if you don't get the sport exhaust. But come on, you're spending 70 grand on something like this. Spend the extra 1,000 for the exhaust. And it does nicely get louder here whenever you are in the sporty modes, and it does quiet down you know, whenever you are in the regular mode there. And it's really well executed, and that's really nice because whenever you aren't trying to drive like a madman, you know, it is you know, going to really be a nice and pretty comfy kind of commuter, and you know, do all that stuff very well. But we're going to try a launch here really quick. It's nice and simple. Left foot brake, right foot gas, launch control activated. Wow, I felt the back end get a little loose there. It was struggling for grip, even with this quattro all-wheel drive system. Man, this thing is magical. I mean, it launches nice and hard like you want. And some of the other Audis and other competitors don't launch quite as hard, but this does. And man, this thing, RS products especially, never disappoint, but especially the RS3. As much as I love, you know, all the other bonkers stuff that they do, you know, I feel like this is my favorite of the bunch. Sure, you know, go for an RS6 Avant if you've got, you know, tons of money to burn, but this thing is just so special and just so wild. It's wilder than all those, you know, bigger ones because, again, you just have that oversteery back end that you're not used to in an Audi unless you're coming out of an R8 rear-wheel drive model that they did for a few years. But other than that, you know, this is a foreign you know, thing for Audis, and just fantastic that they're offering this here. And we'll try some automatic shifts here just to see how that does on its own. You know, it's really good with being smart about when it upshifts and when it downshifts. Obviously, it uses all the other logic. And yeah, that is the other thing too, is the rear diff, it's been reprogrammed, but it's also smarter. So they actually upgraded the computing power, so it gets more data now, and it does look at steering angle more and looks at a bunch of other things, so that, for example, it can know to provoke oversteer, not just from you mashing the gas with a certain steering angle, but it can also just like see, okay, this is you know, doing a Scandinavian flick or whatever, where you're not doing a bunch of throttle manipulation, where it's going to then, you know, still try and give you that oversteer. So it's a smarter system too, which is great. And you know, again, it's all in the name of fun, which is what I love about this too. And I love that they don't take it so seriously. They say, no, we must not have any slip whatsoever. You know, they're allowing that, and I really love that. But I'm going to go ahead and put it up into the dynamic mode instead, since they say that's supposed to be a little more oversteery, and we'll give that a try here and see how that does. Here we go. Still the same great loud exhaust and all that. I feel like steering gets a little lighter actually here in this mode, possibly. You also do have the individual mode. I can see the traction control light was lighting up a little bit there. Yeah, the individual mode, you know, like I've had it all week in individual mode, where I have the dampers in their softest setting and everything else in its sporty setting. And, you know, that's great because then you have the extra comfort. And, you know, but if, for example, you want to have everything be super aggressive, but you don't want to wake up the neighborhood, you can have the exhaust in the quiet mode, have everything else, you know, set up to be super sporty. So, you know, you can have it however you want, which is great. And also, these are nice and light. These weigh 3,559 pounds, which, you know, adds in, you know, this nice short wheelbase. I mean, everything about this car is just dialed in to be an absolute blast on a back road. And the other thing that, you know, is very unique about these that I've always loved is the tire setup. You have 265 wide tires in the front, but 245s in the rear. I believe this is the only production car in the world that has wider tires in the front than the rear from the factory. And yeah, I can see a little bit of, you know, tail happiness there. And, you know, on a back road here, it certainly is playful, and I appreciate that, while still giving you the safety net of all-wheel drive and the safety net of, you know, it's not like everything is off. You can turn everything off and really have it be crazier if you want. But I just love that, you know, you can have that fun. And what I found is the most fun, the thing that just made me giggle like the Joker every time I was driving was 90-degree turns. If I'm at a stop sign and I'm turning onto a main road and I, goose it a little bit, give it a little bit of gas, and, just kick the back end out a little bit, it just would squirm. And I even drove this in the rain one night. And again, I always save my first full throttle reaction for camera. So I was not even going hard, but just, goosing it with, maybe 50%, 75% throttle, getting the back end out. In the rain, this thing's gripping and gripping and just, trying it with all its might to, go. But it really was so dynamic, and it was twitchy, but I felt safe still. It wasn't twitchy to the point where it felt like it was trying to kill me. It was just twitchy, like, hey, let's have fun. And I think this car kind of fools you into thinking you're a better driver than you are, probably, because, I mean, it really just, it was amazing how I'm just like, wow, I'm doing these perfect little, like, couple millisecond drifts and just having a ton of fun in this thing. And it's, I remember there was some oversteer for sure in the pre-refresh RS3. I praised that. You can go watch the video from a few years ago and see all that. And part of that was thanks to, again, the skinnier tires in the back than the front. So it's always had that. The torque vector and rear diff's always been there. It's just that it's even more oversteery. And for that reason, I found myself just being completely obsessed with this car this week. It's so fun that, I don't know how many of you also have this, but, I have like a lottery dream car wish list. If I could, buy any car I wanted someday. And the RS3 is on that list now, especially. I mean, I love this thing before, but like, even if you're, multi-millionaire, this is a kind of fun that I don't think you can get in anything else in the car world today. Obviously, there's other stuff that's arguably more fun and crazier and all that, but, an all-wheel drive, tiny little car that's oversteery but can handle all four seasons, that's just putting a smile on your face in a safe but fun way. And you can have it even be less safe if you want to go with that, rear mode for the torque and all that. And it's just, it's really a car that it stands out from everything else in the world. And again, like I said in the beginning, I didn't think this could get any better. I truly thought this car was basically about as close to perfect as you can get in a car, for when I did the 2022 model. But they've actually managed to make me fall in love with this thing even harder than before. So, I mean, bravo Audi engineers for eking out even more fun from a car that didn't need any improvement, honestly. But I'm happy we have it, and as a result, again, all RS3s are phenomenal, and if you own one, you are a very fortunate person that I'm jealous of. But this one, if you have the money, definitely upgrade to the 2025. And now I'm in regular mode. We'll just accelerate down this on-ramp like you would if you just didn't put anything into its sporty mode. And you still get plenty of fury and a really great, I mean, that's a good example. I'm in comfort mode, and it's still, I put my foot down, instant response, and oh yeah, this thing is, it's good all the time. All the time is good. Anyway, so now we are merging onto the highway, and again, I have everything in its comfort mode, so just trying to do more normal commuting style driving here in this. This is where it does a really good job as well. So, it's a small car. There's not a lot of sound deadening because they didn't want to make it, too heavy, and I commend them for that. So you hear some noise, and, especially, here at about 60 odd miles an hour, you hear some road noise for sure, but it's really not too bad. And it's another one of those things, goes along with this theme of, I just had so much fun. I don't care if I get a little bit of road noise here. And, you can turn up the stereo, you can do whatever to, mitigate it if you want. But it's totally fine as far as all that goes. Also, I'm going to go ahead and put on the adaptive cruise control system here, which does come standard, by the way, in all of these, which is great. And I also love that there's still a stock that's separate from the steering wheel, so you don't have a zillion buttons on the wheel, and it's uncluttered. And so, yeah, just cruising here with the adaptive cruise on. We do also have the lane keeping assist, which I'll go ahead and turn on here now. And, it's great that all this comes standard. In other Audis, sometimes you do have to pay extra for it, but it's all standard here. And all the safety tech here is fantastic for 2025. So, especially in the RS3, it comes loaded with everything. So all the convenience stuff as well, like the 360 camera with park assist is standard. The parking sensors are all standard. All of that stuff is all standard here. And so it makes it nice and easy from an ordering standpoint. And if you don't want it, you don't have to turn any of it on, of course. But so now we have a quieter highway here, and it's very nice. We do have this gentle corner we're coming up to. The steering wheel's still not too smart with sensing my hands, because it tells me to take over steering even though my hand's on the bottom of the rim here. So that's, the only thing. If you're trying to have this do steering assist, it did that totally fine there. I mean, Audi's system is pretty good most of the time. So again, I'm not going to dwell on this because people that buy these probably don't care about it, having assistance for you. But just know that it will do that if you're just trying to kind of chill, on a long highway drive. Again, you can see you get no exhaust noise, no drone, and you have all the assistance, and then you can just, again, have the music in the background and just enjoy that if you want. And all the basics come standard here as well, so blind spot monitoring, automatic emergency braking, of course, all those things, again, all baked in. And now that we're off the highway, I'm going to go back into my individual mode. So I have the nice comfy dampers, and then I have that wonderful exhaust to listen to, and even partial throttle is just so melodious. Anyway, one of the last things here to talk about here is fuel economy briefly. These are rated at 20 mpg city, 29 on the highway, and 23 combined. In my driving here this week, I didn't do very much highway driving, and I was driving in a sporting manner. I was doing some paddle shifting. I was in the sport modes, a good bit. So, I'm probably a worst case scenario kind of fuel economy, I'd say, but I'm getting 18.1 mpg. But, oftentimes I do get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in regular driving in regular cars. And so the fact that I'm still, managing 18 here, even with my enthusiastic driving this week, and the lack of, any highway driving to make up for it, really, I think isn't too bad. And obviously this is an expensive car, and you're buying it for the engine, so you're not going to be complaining about fuel economy or anything. But just know 18 is what I'm getting here, and I'm totally okay with that personally. And then the last thing to really mention here, though, is the pricing and how this compares to the competition. So let's get into that. So the 2025 Audi RS3 starts at $64,695 for 2025, but for 2026 will go up to $67,395 to start. This 2025 as tested is $76,940, but will be $800 more for the 2026 model year. If you don't need the ceramics, you can save $5,600. If you don't need all the carbon fiber, you can save another $2,750. You can definitely skip the $2,000 tech pack if you can live without a head-up display. So my spec for even a 2026 would come out to around $69,000 while still getting this beautiful Ascari blue, the sport exhaust, and all the same fun. And if you're looking to buy an RS3 or any vehicle for that matter, you're definitely going to want to head over to maranmotoring.com. There you'll go to the new car quotes tab where you can get access to dealer invoice pricing as well as getting connected to a local dealer so you can check out the RS3 for yourself and see what you think about it. So there's going to be a link in the description as well as one in a pinned comment to take you straight to that site and get you all that info. Now, as far as how it compares to the competition, the only direct competitor really is the Mercedes-AMG CLA 45S, which I believe is in its final model year since the new CLA has already been revealed. And that CLA 45 starts $4,000 higher and is about $2,500 more expensive, comparably equipped, but it does have 22 more horsepower from a 4-cylinder turbo, which is impressive for a non-hybridized 4-cylinder, but it's still not quite as special as that 5-cylinder in the Audi. I admittedly haven't driven the current generation CLA 45, so I can't weigh in on how it drives, but it doesn't have some of the fun tricks of the Audi with that torque vectoring rear diff. Another competitor that's about the same size is the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing, but they are a little more expensive, starting at $74,000 to get a car that's comparable to a base RS3. But actually, they're about the same price as an RS3 for a more loaded one, as long as you're willing to not have all the carbon fiber, which Cadillac charges $10,000 extra for. That Cadillac is only rear-wheel drive, but does give you 78 more horsepower, offers a manual transmission, and has an automatic that'll be a little smoother in stop-and-go traffic thanks to its torque converter, but won't be quite as quick with the manual shifts. The Cadillac also will have ventilated seats and a heated steering wheel. If you want that kind of stuff that the Audi doesn't have and you don't need as much four season capability, I'd say the Cadillac is the only one I might take over the RS3. The final competitor I'll briefly mention is the BMW M2. It's really an apples to oranges comparison, but it seems like a lot of people cross-shop them, so the highlights here are that the M2 is $5,000 more expensive, only gives you rear-wheel drive, plus it has a smaller back seat, but it does give you 79 more horsepower from an awesome 6-cylinder engine, and does, at least for the time being, still offer a manual transmission. I reviewed the M2, and while I enjoyed it, I definitely had more fun in the RS3. But yeah, so overall, I absolutely love the RS3. I'll say it one more time. This is one of the most fun cars you can get under $100,000, and honestly, more fun than probably a lot of cars over $100,000. And it's so special, and especially if you need all-wheel drive, no question about it, this is the thing to get if you, again, have that kind of a budget to work with. Absolutely love this. You know, but even if you know, just maybe are fine with rear-wheel drive with some of the other competitors, but you just, you know, want the fact that this kind of gives you some of that rear-wheel drive fun, while also, again, giving you, again, a little bit more of a safety net, a little bit more control, so you're not just completely on your own like you would be in a CT4V Blackwing or something like that. I absolutely love this thing. And again, the 5 cylinders, I think the thing that really, you know, makes this feel so special, because it's really the last car in the world with this engine, and one that, again, probably won't last forever. Maybe it'll last a few more years here, but, you know, will we get a new generation of this? I don't know. And definitely this is one of those cars, buy it while you can, enjoy it while you can, and just yeah, it's a car that definitely deserves all the hype and more. And I'm just so thankful it's still around. Thank you, Audi, for not only just keeping it around, but continuing to improve it, making it more fun. And man, yeah, what a car this is. Definitely one of the most fun cars I've driven all year. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2025 Audi RS3. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Audi for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. And yeah, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.